Why is it that the people that we want to want us the most are the ones who make us feel the most unwanted? No matter how hard we try, no matter what we say, we do everything to win their affection, and yet all it takes is an unread text, a call that they don't pick up, or them saying, nah, I don't really want to hang out. And suddenly, it's like a gut punch of anxiety. Our chest tightens, our mind starts to spin, and it feels like that if they don't want to love us, then it must be because something is broken inside of us. Like their rejection is proof that we're not good enough or that we're not lovable. It can make us believe that maybe we'll never really be wanted or never really be loved. Like love is something for other people to have, but just not us. Now, I lived in this cycle of rejection for most of my life, trying to fix what I thought was broken inside of me. It was exhausting, and it nearly shattered me until I found that it wasn't actually ever about rejection. The pain and intensity of anxiety that I was feeling was actually about something else entirely. When I realized this, everything in my life changed, which is why I know that it can change for you too. After understanding what was really going on, I built a 3-part system to break free from crippling rejection patterns. And I promise it will transform how you experience your life and love when you start to apply it. I'm going to show you exactly how to use this system with examples so you can break free from ever feeling rejected again. So here is part 1, because once you understand this first piece, rejection will stop meaning what you think and what it feels like rejection means right now. So let's start with a scenario to make it as easy as possible for you to understand and apply. So here is your roadmap out of the painful rejection patterns you're feeling right now. So the scenario is you just started talking to somebody and you're waiting to hear back from them. Maybe you sent them a text asking if they want to hang out again. Maybe you tell them that you had a great time, but 8 hours go by and there's no text. Now, option number 1 is you start to feel that anxiety. The stress starts to flow through your body. You get that sinking feeling in your gut and in your chest, and you feel like you've already been rejected because they aren't interested. If they were, they would have replied by now. So you must not be good enough. You must not be lovable or not attractive. And then you find yourself in another situation, and the exact same thing happens. Now, believe it or not, this text, this no reply here is actually a neutral situation. I know, I did not believe this at first either, but hear me out, I promise, because this small detail is life-changing. We don't actually know for a fact what is happening in their world. However, it doesn't feel like that to us, because when we notice their lack of reply, our body starts to sound the alarm bells. Our nervous system is flooded with chemicals and it gets overloaded and throws us into full threat mode. But why? Well, part 1 of breaking free is understanding this. When you barely know somebody and your reaction to what's going on feels huge, it's rarely actually about them. It's not about them not replying. This is actually something that is historical. Your body is recognizing something that feels familiar, but it's from your past. It's filling in the blank that is actually causing you more harm than good. This lack of attunement, this lack of attention and desire to connect with you, it feels just like it did the last time from your past. And so you are bracing for that same remembered hurt, and suddenly it feels like your safety, your sense of belonging, and your hope for a future that you really want is being ripped away when they don't reply. Now, this is not the truth, but before we can actually see the truth in step 2, we have to rescue ourselves from this physical panic. The first step is learning how to break free from this automatic and impulsive response when somebody doesn't appear to be interested the way we think that they should be or want them to be. So when we assume that they're not replying because we're not enough, we're not lovable, we're not attractive, whatever that deep insecurity, that deep wound is saying, you might notice that your heart starts to race, that your head starts to spin, that you have a lot of anxiety. Maybe your shoulders start to get tight. Maybe your stomach gets tight. Maybe there's an ache in your chest. We want to know, what does it sound like when you start assuming and inserting that the reason they're not responding is because of what you lack? When you start understanding what it sounds like, what it feels like in your body, what you're going to start to do is create a stop here. You're going to start becoming aware of this moment, which is going to break free of yet another wave of assumed rejection. Because remember, we do not know why they haven't responded. Maybe they had a death in the family. Maybe they had a horrible day at work. Maybe their attachment wounds are actually getting pushed and they are afraid that they're not good enough for you. We do not know. And until we hear differently, what we've got to do is manage our nervous system. The reason that you have all these responses and that you assume that it's because of what you lack is because that's what happened before. And that's what we're going to get into step 2. But the first step is to breaking free of this kind of kidnapping of your nervous system by unconscious assumption that it's because of you. So we want to know the phrases, we want to know what it feels like, because the first step into the breaking out is going to be A. We've got to be aware that we're actually in a trigger. The story I want to tell myself right now is that the reason they're not responding back to me is because I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm just never going to find love. We got to move into B, breath. What we're trying to do is override our body's impulsive response, which is only going to loop us back to repeat the exact same thing hundreds of times if you're anything like me. When you start to understand, I'm going Thelma and Louise, flying off the cliff, I've got to come back to my breath. I'm assuming rejection right now, which means I'm starting this by rejecting myself. I don't know what's going on there, but I got to take care of myself. I've got to then make a new choice. And even just being aware that you're getting triggered and you're stepping out of it is that in itself something new. What a new choice ideally looks like as you're aware of it, you're stepping out of it, you're breathing to override that danger alarm. The new choice needs to be restoring safety in your nervous system. That could look like breath work, like I just said when we're doing B. That could look like going on a walk, because there's a nerve in your eye that literally has the same gas tank that your amygdala uses, your fear scanner. So if you're pulling resources from what fuels your fear scanner, it's going to reduce that huge threat response. Other somatic movements you can do is simply a hug. As you're breathing, trying to let your body know you're safe. You're in 2025 or 2026 or whatever year you're watching this video. You're not in 1992. You're not in 1982 or 1975, whatever year where you would have been a child and been really vulnerable and needed an outside person to restore your safety. Just staying, we're not in our head. This is a body. We've got to communicate with our body through feeling. Another thing you can do is binary beats. Butterfly hug, I believe, is another word for this. This helps stimulate both sides of your brain to help bring you back into integration and not a fight or flight. And there are tons of different other things you could do, but the biggest thing for you is to pull all your resources inward as opposed to try to figure out why you weren't good enough, why they responded this way, what is it that they're doing. You're leaving yourself and rejecting yourself unknowingly. So as you learn to break free of that self-abandonment and self-rejection, you're learning how to become an emotionally available person to yourself, which removes that threat, which makes you feel alone and unsafe. So that's step 1, awareness, breath, and new choice. Now let's move into the second part of this system so you never feel rejected again. I hope you're not too blown away and intimidated by my artistic ability to draw. So the second part of this system is only possible if you're able to learn to step out of that loop in part one. You have to learn to break free from the trigger. Now, part two is about seeing your past differently. Remember, this is not during the moment. This is outside of the moment where you're triggered, where you have space, you feel safe, and you feel calm. And our big focus here is to see your past situation that is the glue of your belief, the meaning and the story you've given yourself based on a past experience. So let me show you what I mean. So potentially when you were younger, maybe your parent was really, really busy at work. Maybe you had other siblings and they seemed really tied up with them, or maybe one of them had more demands than others. And you really never got a lot of attunement. That is your caretaker going to you, tuning into your world. And if you kind of laugh at this or like, tuning into my world, what do you think? What are you talking about? That doesn't exist. That's certainly not what my life looked like. Exactly. So if you don't even know what I mean, that's okay. That is not your fault. That means that what you deserved and your birthright from the people in your life who were meant to keep you safe, you deserve them to attune, to tap in, to come into your world emotionally and understand you. And if you are having any sort of hard time or big emotions, help you learn to digest them, to process them, and come back to regulated. Now, I would imagine that that doesn't really resonate with a lot of you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken because you didn't get that. However, say you wanted to connect with your parent, you wanted to show them. You made an art project and you go and you're like, hey, mom or dad or whoever your caretaker was, look at what I got. And they don't even look at you. Maybe they're watching TV or maybe they're reading something or on their phone, whatever the situation, right? They don't even acknowledge you. So rather than that attunement, you reach to them. There's nothing happening here. So there's this gap, right? Where you're looking for connection and that nothing's available, okay? As a kid, we don't have the ability to process our emotions. We don't have the ability to see really objectively because our brain is not developed. So we might assume or take a guess as to why this is happening, but it's from a brain that's not fully developed because, again, we needed the adult to help us, to teach us, and that adult wasn't available. So you might have thought, oh, the reason that they're not meeting me where I am or interested in what I do is because it's not enough. It's not good enough, right? And there's a ton of different examples that could have happened to you that I'm not talking about, but maybe you wanted to go and have a special day at school and you wanted your parent to be there and they didn't show up. And then they didn't say anything to you when you saw them again. And you maybe felt ashamed that you wanted them to be there, that you were asking for too much. So you could feel that you are too much when you ask for something, right? But you can start to see that the caretaker, right? They're the ones that are falling short. But in your wiring in your brain, you assume responsibility for their behavior. Now, do you remember in part one, when that person, we didn't know what was going on, but what was the first thing? Assumption that something you did or didn't do or don't have is the reason that they're not connecting. That's one of the biggest and most detrimental parts of how we experience rejection. Because the rejection I'm talking about feels like the person is completely and utterly saying, no, you're not good enough. Who you are, what you represent is just not enough. You fall short. That's the crushing rejection. If somebody isn't interested and you feel it's not about the epicenter of who you are, it won't bother you. You might be disappointed, but it will not crush you, because the more you start to see this differently, that actually, and how do we do that? We emerge with our adult mind and we start to see this differently so that we can help rescue our little self and realize this was a bit toxic. We can still love our parents and appreciate everything that they did for us. And this doesn't mean that they're a bad person. They could be, right? But a lot of times they just didn't have the emotional tools that you needed. The more you see, oh, actually, I wasn't too much. I was asking for what I needed. That's not too much. Maybe they didn't have enough for me. So them not being enough doesn't make me too much. And again, was I not enough because they didn't come and connect with me? No, maybe they were at capacity, which makes sense. As an adult, we can see that, but it's still inappropriate. So the more we can change the way we see our past, the more we can rescue our true self and help us to see and understand what really happened and completely resurrect and pull back our sense of worth and our goodness that has always been there. So as you start to see this differently, when those situations from part one show up, you'll start to have more and more space to see, oh, maybe this isn't actually about me. And if this person just ghosts, the lack of emotional availability is actually a recreation, and I'm not interested in that. So if they're not interested, neither am I. So now you're part of the decision, and you're not just being outcast and completely dismissed. The recreation of the pain is more about your past than what's happening in your current situation. In order to grow the skill of part 1 and 2, you have to use the ability of your discernment. That means your ability to look inside of you and then also objectively see what is going on and start to think of yourself differently than how you were treated as a kid. One of the biggest hiccups we have when it comes to persistent rejection patterns is a misunderstanding of ourselves and our own value. It's like if you met somebody at a dinner party and I'm over here saying how annoying they are and how they've done this and that to me in the past. And if you go and talk to them, you'll be like, okay, get away from them. They're not nice. They're not good. But potentially my view of them is really skewed. You would not know that because your first impression is skewed and you don't know that. That's exactly what happened to you, regardless of intent when you were younger. The impression you have of yourself and your value and your inherent worth is skewed. It's distorted. There's nothing wrong with you. You can pull back your power and take your goodness and your worth and your lovability out of your shadow. It wasn't safe for you as a kid to have those things, but I promise you, it is the gateway to having the love and connection that you're looking for right now. Using your discernment and realizing that yes, sometimes people will want to be around you, and other times maybe you're not people's cup of tea, and other people might not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. However, your tea will be somebody else's gold, and they will feel like the luckiest person to have you in their life. The more you start to see yourself differently in the truth of yourself, the easier it'll be to find somebody who sees you the same. The deep and debilitating rejection we all fear has more to do with pushing on wounds from our past that are actually misunderstandings about our true self. The more you see this, the less the current situation will make you feel rejected rather than simply being maybe a disappointing part of life. Now, learning to break free of the illusion of rejection can help you liberate yourself. But if you aren't aware of this one sneaky habit that contributes to your pain in relationships, you'll just keep repeating the rejection cycle all over again. So check out this next video right here to learn what this sneaky thing is and how to break it so you can find the relationship you're really looking for. Check it out right there.